Hi everyone, this is Serverless Camp Week 1, Step 6 by Bit Project. My name is Emily, and in this video we're going to be going over how to call different APIs from your Azure function and how to make those calls. Alright, let's get started. So we're going to run git pull and create a new branch called 2cats first. If you want to open up Visual Studio Code, git pull, git checkout. I'm going to check out back to my main branch. I'm going to pull again. All right, let's create a new branch then. And I think we're supposed to call it 2cats. That's right, 2cats. All right, so now I have my new branch, and what I'm going to do is the next thing we are going to create a deploy an HTTP trigger function. So let's create a new HTTP trigger function using our handy Azure extension. So I'm going to click new function. I'm going to name it 2cats. Press enter. It's going to have function authorization level. Awesome. So now we have our new folder for our new function. It's called 2cats. Everything is set up with our template. So now we're going to start our code, and we have a couple new concepts here. The first thing is we are going to call the cat as a service API, and then we are going to return the image in base64. So hopefully you might be already familiar with base64. If not, that's totally fine. Basically, the entire concept is that data, when it's going around the interwebs, in the end, it's all zeros and ones, but there are different ways to represent that data. And one of those ways is base64. If you want to Google, you can figure out what base64 looks like. It basically looks like a bunch of jumbles of letters and numbers, and usually with some equal signs in the end. It's just a different way to represent data, and it can actually represent a picture. So that's what we're going to be working with today. Okay, let's see here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is make a request in Azure. And you might be wondering, like, what kind of request? Why are we making it? Well, in this case, we're going to be making a GET request. And previously, we made all our requests from Postman or the browser. But this time, we're going to learn how to do it in code. And then the way we're going to do it is using node fetch. Now, node fetch is called, it's an NPM module. And basically, what you do is you import other people's code into your code. So then you can write less code, and that's node fetch is gonna help you call make get and post requests, which is a way you can simplify your code by importing this package. All right, let's go ahead and install that then. I've been talking about it this entire time. What you can go ahead and do is just to copy these two commands and make sure you're in the 2cats branch. I'm just gonna paste them both in, and then you can just click type in enter, and it's just going to do everything for you. It's just installed your package. And if you want to see here, this is the package.json file, and it basically is going to have everything you've installed in there. So just going over the commands again, let me go back. 2cats. So you would do npm init-y. That's basically initializing a file, right? And then if you run the specific command, we're installing a specific version of node fetch. If you install it, it's just installed it for you, and now it's in your correct directory, and now we're actually going to import it. And let me delete this template function first so we don't get confused. All right, so now we're going to import the function, and to import a function, you should always do it at the very top of your code. So I'm going to do it on line 1. And the way you're going to do that is just by using this trusty line of code. And basically, this is telling the code, hey, we're going to import this code. We're going to need to use it later on. All right, now that we've done that, we're going to make the request. So let's go ahead and copy this and put it in our code. Now what this is doing is it's using the fetch function the fetch module, and it's going to be fetching or making a GET request to the endpoint that we specify, and it's going to get the data in terms of an array buffer. If you want to look up more about like array buffers and what they actually are, there's a link right here you can go to. Basically, it's a way to store data in JavaScript, receive data, and represent it. So that's how we're going to be handling it in JavaScript. All right, now you might be wondering what's going in this endpoint. Well, if you recall, we played around with the cat as a service API before, and that's exactly the endpoint we're going to be using because remember, it returns an image. So just went ahead and pasted that in. All right, so what our code does so far is it makes a GET request to the cat as a service API and receives it as data in an array buffer. You can see resp, short for response here, response. Okay, so now we are going to encode it in base64 because that's how we're going to return it from our Azure function. And remember, like I said before, you can actually turn base64 into different things, which I'll actually show you after we finish coding this function. We're going to turn it back into an image. So what does it mean to encode something? It's just another way to represent data. And you can put base64 on an HTML website to represent an image. And it'll load the image, which is pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and convert this data into base64 so we can actually finally return it. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to, I probably shouldn't have pasted there. My bad. All right, I just went ahead and deleted the URL, so I'm gonna put it back in. All right, so now that we have our code pasted in here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna change these variables because we need to figure out what to put in them. So what do you want to turn into base64 inside of original data? So we want to turn data, which is right here, into base64. Original data will be encoded in base64. So now this variable, the base64 data, is going to be our new base64 encoded string. So I'm just going to add a var to declare that variable because we haven't declared that yet. And let's see, all I'm going to do is we're going to return base64 data in a response. Awesome, let's walk through this and see how it works. So like I said before, the first thing we did was just make a GET request to the cat as a service API. Then we received the data in terms of an array buffer. But we're not done yet because we want to convert it to base64. So we did buffer.from data, so that's our original data, to string base64. So we want to convert it to base64. Now it's stored in this new variable called base64 data, so we're just going to go ahead and return that. All right, I think that's about it for what we have to do. And this just shows you how to return it. All right, so last thing I wanted to talk about is you need to put your brackets to return the data in JSON format. And that's something I haven't done yet, so we weren't totally finished. And let's talk about JSON format. JSON format is basically a JSON object, and they're basically, if you've done object-oriented programming before, it's kind of the same thing, same idea as using dot notation to access different methods and different instance variables. In this case, we're accessing variables and arrays using JSON format. And JSON format in JavaScript is going to be using this bracket data. It's a bracket symbol. So the way we're going to return a response like this is simply by putting brackets around our variable, like so. And you can see here, there's also the syntax here, you can copy that. And if you noticed previously in previous functions like access denied, access granted, those were all returned in plain text, but this time we're going to return it in JSON format. And this will come in handy later on in the curriculum, so you'll see why we're using that this time. Okay, let's go ahead and test it then. All right, so now it's going to give us our URL we're going to use. And I'm going to use Postman because there is going to be a large chunk of data that's going to be here, and we're going to need to copy it all. You'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to make a GET request, and let's send it. Awesome. So look at that. We have this giant block of data. You can see that it was returned like this. And let me show you how this base 64 can be represented. So I just went ahead. I'm going to copy everything. And you can use your favorite website to convert base 64 into an image. I just Google base 64 into an image. You can see there's one right here. I'm going to paste it, and look at that. It's right there. So as you can see here, all this jumble of data turned into an image. And that just goes to show the power of data representation and how you can convert it to different forms, but it'll end up in an image, because in the end, everything's just zeros and ones. All right, the last thing we have to do is deploy this function, and then we can go ahead and commit our code. So just like before, go to the Azure extension, click on the little cloud button, click here on the function app that you choose, and just click deploy. All right, I'll see you back when this finishes deploying. All right, it was successful, so let's go ahead and go to our Azure portal. So if you go ahead, click on your old function app, click refresh, and there should be a new 2cats Azure function there. I can get the function URL, and I'm just going to quickly demonstrate that in the browser. There we go. You have your giant block of base 64 data that can actually turn into a cat image. Okay, so now that we've confirmed that it works, let's go ahead and put it in our repository. So we're going to place our function in repository secret called 2cats endpoint and commit everything. So I'm going to go to the settings of my repository, click on secrets, actions, new repository secret. It's going to be called 2cats endpoint, paste that in. All right, add a secret. So we've deployed everything, we've added our secret, and the last thing we got to do is commit. So let's go ahead and go to Visual Studio Code. Okay, now let's go ahead and go to GitHub, start our pull request. Okay, I'm just gonna reword that, start 2cats. What did I change? Added call to cat as a service API to get a cat image encoded in 64. Or should I say return? All right, I'm going to create the pull request. Now, once this finishes running the code and your bot approves your code, you can go ahead and merge the pull request. But join us in the next video. We're going to be adding yet more features onto our 2cats function to make it more complicated, like we did with the Hacker Voice function. I won't tell you what we're adding, but you can go ahead and look on the next step if you wanted to. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.